Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As we start spreading our tentacles out with this webinar, it's really quite amazing people who are showing up. Today's topic, empathy. Why is it the hard skill of leadership? And what does it take for us as leaders to solve those tough issues, or actually any issue, with compassion? And I really do believe it's a hard skill. Being empathetic has been really hard won for me. I was raised in a home where when things, where you got on with things, and I can still hear my father's voice saying to me in Afrikaans, because we were a bilingual home, "Moenie aangaan nie, Jennifer." In other words, translated, don't carry on, suck it up and be quiet and stop complaining. Given that training, how do you think I treated my people? When they had hardships or something would impact their job, I just ride over the top of it, a little bit like Tama said. So in a previous life, I ran really large sales teams and drove a tight ship, especially on results. So how many of you are results orientated? Like, give me the results and stop complaining, right? So I remember one of my team calling me and she said, "Jennifer, I can't make my appointments this week." And this was my response. "So, have you got someone to fill in?" Not, "How are you?" and "Have you got the support that you need?" And just leave the appointments to us. Don't worry about anything. We'll handle it all. How thoughtless and uncaring was that? In that moment, I eroded our relationship. Trust was broken. She didn't come back from that and eventually resigned. None of you would do something as awful as that, would you? Yesterday, Terry said to me, "Did you really say that? I can't imagine you saying something like that." As I've shared this story with my team, each of them have said that to me. And each time I've cried a little bit because I needed to acknowledge I've come somewhere. I've got so much more muscle around what it takes to stay with people and be empathetic. That's part of my journey. Let's look at where you are at right now. For those of you who are here for the first time, as Tama said, we'll send you into breakout rooms. And rather than me talk at you or our facilitators talk at you, we believe that the collective knowledge is in groups. You'll come up with great answers. So, for our first breakout question, you're going to look at the topic. What does it look like? Not what is empathy. What does it look like when you are empathetic? While you're there, if you haven't done so already, introduce yourself to the people that are in the room with you. What company are you from and where are you located? Off you go. We'll bring you back in 5 minutes. What does empathy actually look like? Off you go. So what does it look like? What does it really look like when you are empathetic? I'm sure that many of you would have said, well, you've got to walk in other people's shoes. How many of you said that? Hey, you said walk in their shoes. Well, how about this? Sometimes other people's shoes just don't fit and they hurt your corns. And you wonder, why have I got my feet in their shoes? Like, really? So, how do we walk in someone else's shoes and not lose ourselves in their emotions and in their problem and in their upset? Otherwise, we'll start judging them and then we'll start fixing them. How many of you are guilty of that one? You'll judge and fix. Right? Let me show you how to do this. So empathy is not sympathy, and we're going to talk more about that later. The word empathy comes from two words. Em, which means with or together, and pathos, with feelings. Yeah, so it's together with feelings. And so some of us go, I don't want to do that. What do you mean? Right? So the integrity and values profile, actually for those of you who have done it, know that we measure empathy. And all the research shows that leaders are required to develop this as a skill. And our definition of it is this: the extent to which you identify with and understand another's feelings, situations, and motives and behavior, and your ability to express that understanding. Like, I get you. If you haven't done the profile, then we will contact you and ask you if you'd like to do it. It's a very important skill for leaders. When we are empathetic, what we do is we fuel connection. And we offer support in any form that they need, not what we think. So for many of us, we are really good advisors, hey? I think you should do this. Well, really, we don't know that. And most people have high degrees of intelligence and they could figure it out if you gave them a chance. So, as soon as we do that, we give up being over there with them and it becomes all about us. I love what Brené Brown says about empathy. It's a choice, and it's a vulnerable one. For those of you who haven't listened to her talk on the power of vulnerability on TED, it's one of the most listened to talks. Go and have a listen. She's preeminent in this area. Why is it that we do not want to connect? For us to connect with where they are, we connect with that place in ourselves. If you're struggling to get why someone is so upset, just remember a time when, even if it's only vaguely similar, you've had a similar experience. Recall how you felt, and in that moment, bang, you'll be there with them. The problem is we don't want to go there. That is why it's a vulnerable choice. It will remind us of our own inadequacies. And no, let's not go do that one. So it requires that we as leaders give up our concerns for ourselves and get over there. That doesn't mean agreement. Just because we get over there with someone doesn't mean we jump in the hole with them and start pulling the sand on top of our own heads. It simply means I hear you, I get it, and this is tough. There is no requirement to fix anything. So for those of you who are fixers, don't jump in there. And there is nothing for us to do right now. Nothing. Do nothing. That is not what is required when people are upset and stuck. There's a wonderful study done by a woman by the name of Teresa Weissman, and she's a nursing scholar, and she studied what was required of people who definitely required empathy in their roles. Interestingly enough, leaders were included. So she said this, that the first step, the attributes of these 4 attributes are the attributes of leaders, of empathetic leaders. 1, you have perspective. Now, it's really difficult when you're over there with your own upset and not wanting to be with them to see the world through their eyes. So the thing that you're going to have to do is give up anything about you. Now, as you get their perspective and you see the world through their eyes, you listen. Now, everyone says empathy is the capacity you have to listen. Guess what, though? Listening without judgment is what makes the difference. If you see it through their eyes, then the pathway of doing that loses your judgment. Have you ever heard someone say, well, I'm listening to you, and then they repeat word for word what you said, and you know they didn't get it? Yeah? Ever had that experience? Oh, you've never done that, have you? So you repeat back, especially for us with husbands and wives, right? We go, I heard you said this, right? And they go, no, you didn't, because you listened with judgment. Can you listen without judgment? This is listening to understand their experience. The third thing is recognize their emotions. Just recognize it. You will then understand how they feel. You don't need to feel it with them. You don't need, I feel you. Really? No, you don't. You just understand it. And then you communicate that you understood how they're feeling, and they feel gotten. Now, this seems like funny language, hey? But have you ever had that moment where you knew someone gets you? They got me. That's empathy. That you heard, you were heard, and they understood. So there is a language for empathy. Now, it's the language when you first start to use it is clumsy. So, you know when someone's really upset? Yeah? The great way to just begin is say, I don't even know what to say right now. And this must be hard. And you're not alone. I'm with you. I hear you. And then acknowledge them. Thank you for telling me. I understand. And then how can I support you? Have you ever asked someone how you could support them and they just keep crying? Do you know when someone is really upset sometimes they actually don't know what they want? What they need is simply for you to listen. If your people do not experience this from you, you will not get the best out of them. Truly listen to understand. Don't sit there working out your rebuttal. That's the problem. We work with leaders all the time and we'll challenge them and then they'll give us their rebuttal. I don't agree. And one of the funny things that we say is, well, we don't care actually whether you agree with us or disagree. So don't go there. It's unempathetic, right? Hold people in that place. So there is nothing soft about empathy. Nothing soft about it. It is loving, it is kind, it is not soft. When we are empathetic, we have the capacity. So when we do it, we create a capacity within ourselves to postpone our own feelings. We postpone them. Not that we dismiss them, we postpone them and we stay present with them. That takes a courageous, loving heart for you and them. And there is nothing to fix. When you're empathetic, you fuel that connection with people and offer support in any form that they need. Then when it's your turn and you're in a mess, it's reciprocated. Now, it doesn't need to be them that reciprocates it for you. It could be anyone. So let's talk now about what it's not. Remember I said earlier, it's not sympathy. So what does it look like when you are sympathetic? We're going to send you to a breakout room on that topic. So now we've talked about what is empathy and what does it look like. Let's look at what does it look like when you're sympathetic. Off you go. Welcome back. So what does sympathy look like? And there will be a few cringe factors here. So you can welcome wiggling in your chair as I point some of these things out. So let's just start with the definition of sympathy. It's feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune. Do you want people having pity and sorrow for you? And yet that's what we dish out. In the moment that we do that, we disconnect. So sympathy drives disconnection. It's the difference between I feel sorry for you versus I'm really sorry that happened. It must be tough. That's empathy. So how does it look, this disconnection that we cause? It's because we can't deal with their feelings. You know, there's an old thing, and people kind of pretend that that isn't what's happening anymore, where people used to say, you just leave your stuff at the door when you arrive. Well, that isn't how life is. We arrive as whole people and we leave as whole people. So as a leader, we don't want to deal with that. Don't you come and tell me about whatever's going on. Yeah, even if it is that they're upset about a project that they can't deliver on. So as a leader, you better deal. Be a grown-up. Right? Deal with things. In that moment, when we do not want to deal, it becomes about us and not wanting to deal with it. And you're afraid that you'll join them in their feelings and lose yourself. Because you bring your upset and feelings into the conversation instead of simply being with theirs. And really, my experience is most leaders don't realize that that is what they're doing. And they'll make trite comments like, oh, what do I do now? Like, really? Sympathy becomes all about you then and not about them. If we sympathize with people, we turn them into victims. And we become, let me help you. Now, consider this just as a rhetorical question, right? If someone says, let me help you, what does it make you? It turns you into something. Consider it turns you into being helpless. Are any people here helpless? I don't think so. Yes, there are a few people in the world that are. Of course, there are times when just some help would make a big difference. And when you offer it, it's done from a position of empathy. Let me get over there with you and work with you. If we keep them in their upset, then we become the heroes. Let me come in and solve the problem for you and fix their lives and make them all better. There you go, you're all better. Off you go. Do what I want. It's all about your feelings and what you want. And we join them and collapse into their lives and experience, we both are lost then. That's the experience. So we've been programmed to be like this. I remember my mother saying to me, Jennifer, just be nice now. Be nice. So there are ways in which there are drivers for sympathy. And these drivers, okay, are the ones that are our automatic programming that we go into using. So we either become fixers or helpers, or we withdraw, or we're the dismisser. We're the one who says, oh, I can't be bothered with that. Can we just put that to the side at the moment? And the person goes like that. Like, what happened? We start blaming them and shaming them. We make them bad and wrong because they can't handle it. We start judging, or we join them in their pity party. Or we are the pitier. Oh, so bad. Too bad for you, hey? Oh, so sad. Right? So, or we're the saviour and we can get to be the hero. So, all of you, I'm sure you've got some pieces of paper there. Which ones of these do you do? Which one are you predominantly? I'm a fixer. and a saviour. Oh, so good. Let me fix that and then I'm the saviour. So I can remember a girlfriend of mine many, many years ago. She came to me and she said, Jennifer, because I'm the fixer, right? I can see what's wrong with everybody. Look at the job that I do, for goodness sake. And then she'd say to me, have you got a new project, Jennifer? I noticed that you have got someone tucked under your wing here and you're going to fix them. And Gayleen still will say that. She says, you haven't got any projects on lately, have you, Jennifer? So I've had to watch myself about being empathetic rather than sympathetic, wanting to go in there and fix them and make them do better. So write down the one that you are, or the couple, or maybe you're a schizophrenic lunatic and do the lot. So there is a language that happens when we are sympathetic. And the number one thing that we do is we use platitudes. And you know, you've all heard these ones. Oh, you can't please everybody. You know, someone's upset about something, they did something wrong, or the person's not happy, and you go, well, you can't please everybody. How empathetic is that? You just go stop dead. Or, you know, well, ignorance is bliss, better not to know, hey? How about this one? 80% listening, 20% talking. What a crock of stuff. Right? It's nonsense, because people just say, well, I'm listening, I'm not talking. Well, it's just an excuse for you to say nothing. You know, we all die sometime. You know, your father just died, and then you say to someone, because you don't know what to say, well, everybody dies sometime. Everything isn't always as it seems. That means we're judging them in some way. Oh, patience is a virtue. It's a virtue. Well, I'm not pretty virtuous, I can tell you. And money can't buy you happiness. And I love the one that comes around in businesses. There's no I in team. And my response to that one now is, well, there is me. So, anything that starts with at least you're alive. I remember 16 years ago having a really bad accident and almost dying, spending a month in an induced coma, and then afterwards walking around with 2 sticks and a frame, and people saying to me, well, at least you're alive, you should be grateful. And then the next one, oh, I'm so sorry. And how about this one? I'm from South Africa, so I can pick on us. South Africans, for those of you who are South African on this thing today, we go like this, oh, shame, that's such a shame. And, you know, it's like people don't even realise they're saying these things because we're not present. So sympathy makes their problem your problem. Then the judger and the fixer come to visit. Yeah? And the judger kills off any connection. Remember, empathy fuels connection. Sympathy destroys it. So how do we keep the judger at bay? Otherwise we will disconnect with people. So we're going to have our next breakout question. How do you keep judgment at bay? Off you go. So how do you keep your judgment at bay? So when someone's in a dark place, it has nothing to do with you if you want to keep your judgment at bay. There's nothing to solve and there's nothing to fix. Solving issues comes later. Judgment makes it personal. You think there's something wrong with them. So what happens when we are in sympathy and bring our judgment to the conversation is we are attached to things being a certain way. In fact, we have to have it that way. We get really needy about it and we drive that as the conversation. We get really pushy. I really love that one. You know, whenever I see people getting pushy around me, especially in sales, I know they're desperate and they cannot detach. We start fixing people And we treat them like there's something's wrong with them. Something's definitely wrong over there. And they're completely disempowered. If you're committed, that is empathetic, you stay open to what they're saying. You're flexible about how you see it. You hold them accountable to what's required, and you build real relationships, not pseudo relationships. You know, when people make trite comments, I know that they're the sympathetic king and queen. When they use those platitudes, it gives me the absolute heebie-jeebies. And people find me cutting across what they say, and they go, "You should listen to me." I said, "Yeah, I did." Build real relationships. Honour people for where they are and don't accept nonsense. Know that they are okay. People are actually okay. When we do that, we empower them. If you have been attached to any particular outcome, remember the broken ankle at the beginning? I was attached to results. I pretended that really I wanted people to have a great life and all of that, but really what I wanted was the results. And I pretended I was a good team player. And in fact, I even took on one of the appointments. That's how good a team player I was. What I was attached to was winning. And I lost sight of what we were committed to as an organisation. When we are attached to anything, that is not the picture of what you want. You know, you have pictures of what you want. How many of you have sort of pictures of what you want? And when we're attached, anything that doesn't look like that picture becomes an absolute nuisance and an obstruction. Get out of my way. I'm doing things over here. So, and it means that we're concerned about what we want and not what we're good for them. So whatever doesn't look like it or supposed to look like, then you're in sympathy, and then we start to fix it, or we whitewash it and make it nothing. And I can't be with you. I can't be bothered, or I can't handle your pain. Dropping your judgment means resisting the urge to change someone, to have it be your way. Let me tell you a funny story now. It wasn't funny then. 2 years ago, Terry, who's my executive assistant, started working with us. And I noticed after a couple of weeks that she had a way of doing things. And I had a huge judgment about it. My judgment was it was messy. So she works with Post-it notes. And she'd have Post-it notes all over her desk. Over here, over there, over there, over there, all these colours. And I'd go. And then one day she left after she'd been with us 2 weeks. And I thought, I'll just tidy up her desk for her. So, you know, I could not resist at that point. So I started making little piles of all her Post-it notes. And about 3/4 of the way through, I had this thought, I think there's a system to this. So then I started madly just unpacking them all, right, and putting them anywhere. And she came in the next morning and she said, "Did you touch my Post-it notes?" Well, actually, I admitted, "Oh, by the way, I have a little confession." And she said to me, "There's a system here. And that system ensures that my life works." Today, if I don't see Terry reach for a Post-it note when I talk to her, I worry that she's got it. That's her system. We don't honour that in people. So I have a little piece of leadership assignment for you. So we took the word homework out just in case you had sort of repercussions of childhood. So this is just an assignment, okay? What I'd like you to do in the next 24 hours is drop your urge to change someone. Anything. Something little like Post-it notes, which wasn't little for her. It was a major way in which she operated. And what I know after 2.5 years of working together, she doesn't miss anything, and she's the most efficient I've ever worked with. So you drop the urge to change someone and how they do it, then you can watch the magic happen. Who's willing to take that on? Just nod, say yes. Everyone just say yes to me. Take it on. Okay. Now, we're going to send you to our next breakout. As leaders, we are results producers, yeah? Of course we are. That's how we got there. What effect does empathy have on those results, though? Go away and have a chat about that. What effect does empathy have on results? Instead of running around rescuing people, making things the way you want it, we would be listening, honouring the differences, causing team, and allowing that difference to take place. Remember, empathy does not require agreement. You don't need people to agree with you or being soft. It is the complex part of building intimate relationships with the people we work with. What is intimacy in the workplace? What is intimacy full stop? And we have a flip chart for this. Intimacy is into me see. I think that's the epitome of empathy. Can you see me? And it takes empathy to see someone for who they really are and allowing their experience. And don't start justifying yourselves right now, everybody. Well, I do let people be themselves. Well, do you really know them? Do you get them? Because in that moment, when we flip into being nice to them, one of our most famous flip charts is this one. Nice means nothing in me cares enough to tell you the truth. What would happen if you stopped doing that? Empathy requires that you can hold the space and be loving and compassionate towards people. When someone is worried and upset, they will look for agreement, and your being nice will not support them, honour them, and grow them. When someone is acting like a victim, they will look for that agreement in order to keep their story and their experience alive. You don't honour them when you do that. When we get beyond ourselves, when this is not about us and it's all about them, and we stop smoothing things over, and then with love and compassion, hold them up against what is required to have their life work. The problem is we don't do that. We get all funny and mushy over it. Don't do that. You never grew anyone that way. So empathy is a hard skill. I'm going to give you a tool that we've shared with you before for those of you who have been here. But here's another way of looking at it. We call this the 3 C's. You want to listen inside of people's complaints are what they upset about or worried about. Can you hear it in what they say? Can you truly listen without judging them? Then you'll find out, right? This is all I say to people. So what are you worried about? What are you concerned about? And they'll go, yada, 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 yada. Oh, okay. I get that. I can't make the deadline. I'm really worried. And da-da-da, I'm going to get into trouble. All that stuff that people do. And then you go, so tell me, what are you committed to? Most people that show up in our organisations on a daily basis are committed to the success of the organisation. The problem is we don't speak to that. So we hear the complaints and the upset. We don't go one deeper and go, what are you concerned about? And they'll tell you that. Then you go, what are you committed to? This. Okay, what's one thing that you could do that fulfills on that commitment? No one woke up this morning and said, I think I'll go to that place of work, your place of work, and upset everybody and just really pee them off. No one did that. It just is what happens a lot of times. When we talk to our people in this empathetic manner, we create freedom for them and ourselves. It will spell that freedom for you. Then you create a team of people who love, care, about each other and the results that this business creates. They will love and care and be compassionate with each other. Compassion doesn't mean yes. A lot of times it means no. And that's the empathetic answer. No. Empathy is a hard-won skill for leaders, and it is learned through our willingness to take a good hard look at ourselves and don't get confused with being nice. To accept the feedback that our people give us and the humility to get our impact as leaders. When we lead with empathy, I promise you, you will build amazing teams around you. People who are committed and support the purpose and values of the business. That's been my experience. I look at the team at Integrity and Values right now, and sometimes my heart just goes out to them in how much effort they have made and how much hard work they put in. And a lot of time without any request from us, they just do what's required. If we can easily get into their world, then they will come into ours. And then magic happens. Empathy is a magic ingredient in leadership. Thank you for being here this morning.